The silence in the opulent Varelian embassy's halls was fractured only by the resounding clang of Lieutenant Elias Cade's heavy boots against the polished marble. His dark diplomatic uniform felt alien. All his military decorations, emblems of 15 years in Earth Special Forces, had been ceremoniously stripped. Only the simple lieutenant bars remained, a stark reminder of his recent fall. "Enter," Ambassador Thorne's voice commanded from behind a heavy, ornately carved door. Elias stepped in, his spine snapping to an automatic position of attention, a habit forged by decades of discipline. "At ease," Thorne replied, his eyes glued to a swirling holographic display. "Or rather, Advisor Cade, that's your official designation now. Lieutenant is fine." "Sir?" Elias stated, his tone devoid of emotion. The ambassador finally lifted his gaze, analyzing Elias with the calculated precision of a career diplomat who had survived 17 planetary assignments. "You are clear on the nature of this post, I presume?" Thorne's voice was professional, measured. "I am a security consultant for the Earth Embassy on Varelia," Elias confirmed. "Or, to be more honest, a diplomatic exile." Thorne's lips barely curled into a smirk. "Honesty serves little purpose in diplomacy, Lieutenant. It often requires selective clarity, a concept your file suggests you struggle with." The air thickened with the unspoken name of the Riel incident. Elias had defied a direct order to withdraw, choosing instead to save 300 refugees from a militia attack on civilian shelters. His act of heroism had violated 6 key protocols and nearly ignited an interplanetary crisis. The subsequent tribunal had been surprisingly lenient, a demotion rather than a dishonorable discharge, but everyone knew this advisory role was a polite way to sideline a problematic hero. "Your skills are uniquely necessary here," Thorne continued, motioning to a chair. "Varelia is complex. They have preserved their independence from the Galactic Confederation for centuries, shielded by their rare resources and an unbreachable wall of tradition. They are fiercely xenophobic, hierarchical, and proud, yet they are finally opening a door to external diplomacy." A shimmering image materialized above the desk. A tall, graceful Varelian female, with characteristic silver-blue skin and elongated features. Her violet eyes held a quiet intensity. "This is Princess Ariana," Thorne explained, "sole heir to the Varelian throne and a powerful force for reform. She is pushing her father, Emperor Valerian, to abandon their isolationist stance. Her court is deeply divided. Many noble houses would rather see their ancient traditions preserved than accept change." Elias studied the image. "And my role, sir?" "Tonight the princess will attend a gathering at the Central Spire, an unprecedented event for Varelian royalty. I need security personnel who grasp both high diplomatic protocol and lethal threats. Your background, Cade, makes you uniquely qualified." Thorne's expression turned grim. "Do not underestimate the stakes. A failure tonight could collapse relations for decades." Elias felt the familiar heavy burden of responsibility. "I understand, sir." "No, I don't believe you do," Thorne countered. "The Varelians are ruled by tradition. It is practically encoded into their very DNA. One tradition, the Dareth Bond, is particularly sacred. It's a life debt ritual so fundamental it underpins their entire legal and ethical structure." A life debt? Elias's interest was piqued despite himself. If a Varelian royal's life is saved by another, an ancient bond is created. It connects their life forces in ways our science barely comprehends, part mystical, part biological. They believe it's the will of their ancestors, manifested through blood and sacrifice. Elias slowly processed the terrifying concept. "And this is relevant tonight, how?" "It isn't," Thorne said firmly. "That was merely cultural context. Your job is to observe, protect Earth's interests, and remain invisible. Remember, Cade, you are not here to be a hero. You are here because it's superior to a dishonorable discharge. Is that absolutely clear?" "Crystal clear, sir." The Central Spire was true to its name, a twisting monolith of pale, pearlescent stone that clawed its way toward Varelia's twin moons. Elias adjusted his collar. The formal Earth diplomatic uniform felt rigid and confining, compared to the familiarity of his combat gear. From his post near the eastern wall, he had a clear, unobtrusive vantage of the entire grand reception hall. Quite the performance, isn't it? Elias turned to see Dr. Lydia Savoy, Earth's senior xenoanthropologist. "It's certainly elaborate," Elias murmured, nodding toward the elaborate crystal formations hanging from the ceiling. The Varelians are meticulous, Dr. Scifi noted. Every gesture, every decoration, it all carries ancestral meaning. The crystalline formations, they represent the royal bloodlines. And those guards, sentinel elites sworn to the Emperor since birth. Their presence is a massive honor. The energy in the hall abruptly shifted. A herald appeared at the main entrance, his voice booming. Her Royal Highness Princess Ariana Varelian Solaris, heir to the eternal throne, keeper of the sacred flame. The princess entered, her physical presence instantly eclipsing her holographic image. She moved with devastating grace, her silver-blue skin luminous. Her traditional robes, flowing purple and silver, shimmered. But it was the contained tension in her expression that caught Elias's attention. She is taking a massive risk, Dr. Scifi whispered. The court's conservative faction views any contact with outsiders as contamination of their sacred bloodlines. There are strong rumors that some nobles would prefer her dead than see her reforms enacted. At the word dead, Elias's combat instincts roared to life. He began a focused scan of the room, noting positions and potential threats. The princess exchanged greetings with the Earth officials. As she reached Ambassador Thorn, she gave a slight, unprecedented inclination of her head. The winds of change blow even through the most ancient forests, Ariana said to Thorn, her voice a distinct melodic poetry. And with change comes new growth. Elias's surveillance continued. He watched with rising unease as several Varelian nobles tracked Ariana with thinly veiled disgust. One particularly tall figure, marked as a high-ranking court official, was tracking her with cold, relentless calculation. As servants began distributing drinks for a traditional toast, Elias spotted a deviation, a server moving with too much single-minded purpose, heading directly for the princess instinct, sharpened by years of battlefield experience, took over before conscious thought could intercede. Elias slipped through the crowd in 3 long, silent strides. The server's hand plunged inside his ceremonial vest and re-emerged with a glint of metal, a ritual dagger with ancient etched symbols. Time dissolved. Elias saw the assassin's arm arc toward Ariana's undefended back. He saw the slow, dawning terror in Thorn's eyes. He saw the sentinel guards turn too far away to matter. Elias lunged, inserting his body between the lethal blade and the princess. A blinding shock of pain exploded across his chest as the ritual dagger sliced through his formal uniform and buried itself deep into his flesh. Shouts erupted. He felt the sudden alarming warmth of blood soaking his shirt. The assassin was instantly submerged by the sentinel guards, but Elias barely registered the capture. His attention was fixed on the floor, where his blood had splattered onto the ancestral marble. The droplets began to glow, pulsing with an unearthly light that seemed to reach out toward the princess. Ariana turned, her expression morphing from shock to stunned recognition, then to unadulterated horror. "No," she whispered, a single word heavy with implications Elias couldn't begin to fathom. As darkness began to claw at his consciousness, Elias saw his glowing blood forming intricate, shimmering patterns on the floor, patterns that mirrored the sacred symbols carved into the pillars throughout the hall. The last thing he registered before oblivion claimed him was Ariana dropping to her knees beside him, pressing her hand to his wound, and a sensation of ice and fire simultaneously racing through his veins where her silver-blue skin met his blood. The Dareth Bond awakens. A voice, filled with dread and awe, resonated through the dying noise. The ancestors have made their choice. Elias awoke to the gentle press of soft fabrics and the exotic scent of alien spices. He opened his eyes to a high, vaulted ceiling inlaid with shimmering materials that looked like 1,000 tiny captured stars. A sharp pain across his chest reminded him of the sacrifice. "Be still," a melodic voice instructed. "The healing is unfinished." Princess Ariana sat beside his bed, her formal robes replaced by simpler attire. They were alone in an opulent chamber, a private area of the royal palace likely forbidden to any human. "What occurred?" Elias asked, his throat raw. "The assassin was neutralized," she replied, her violet eyes studying him with an uncomfortable intensity. "He was hired by those who oppose my reforms, though he perished during interrogation before naming the noble house that orchestrated the attempt. But that is not our main concern." Elias noticed she was absently touching a pattern on her wrist. It pulsed with a faint, identical luminescence to the one throbbing beneath the bandages on his own chest. "The Dareth Bond," he stated, recalling Thorne's briefing. Ariana nodded solemnly. "You know the concept, then?" "Only vaguely. A life debt tradition?" "It is beyond tradition, Lieutenant Cade. It is the most sacred connection in our culture, transcending mere obligation." She rose to dip her fingers into a glowing, mysterious liquid in a stone basin. "When you intercepted that blade, when your blood met our sacred ground and ancestral symbols, you triggered a spiritual and biological process that is now irreversible. Our life forces are connected." Elias stared in disbelief. "Connected? How exactly?" "In 5 phases," she explained. "We have completed only the first, initiation through blood. The remaining 4 must be fulfilled according to ancient law or—" She hesitated. "Or what?" "Or we both will perish," she finished simply. "The bond once awakened demands completion. If denied, it causes a wasting sickness that affects both participants. It cannot be severed. You're claiming I am magically bound to you and we will die if I refuse an alien ritual?" "It is not magic," she corrected firmly. "It is a biochemical and quantum resonance our ancestors engineered into our genetic code millennia ago. That it affects human physiology is unprecedented. So what must happen now? Now you become my Dareth Sentinel, my bound protector until all phases are complete." Her tone was absolute. "And if I refuse? Then you condemn us both to a slow, painful death. The bond is woven into the very fabric of our beings now, Lieutenant." Elias carefully sat up. "I must contact my superiors." "Explain this." "Ambassador Thorne has already been informed," she interrupted. "He has agreed that you will remain here as my security advisor. A diplomatic fiction to explain your presence in the royal court. I have no choice in this." "Did you have a choice when you jumped in front of that blade?" She countered, a hint of curiosity in her voice. Elias had no answer. It had been instinct. "The second phase begins soon," Ariana warned. "Memory sharing. It cannot be controlled. The bond will select which memories are exchanged between us." "Wait," Elias protested, panic rising. "You will see all my memories?" "Only those the bond deems significant to our connection. I also cannot choose which of mine will be revealed to you. It is a process of mutual, profound vulnerability." The thought of this alien princess witnessing his darkest moments, the ones that haunted his nightmares, sent a chill through him. "How long do I have before this phase begins?" "Days, perhaps. And there is one other thing you must know." Ariana hesitated, her expression troubled. "My father, the Emperor, does not know the full extent of this. He has been told only that a human officer prevented an assassination and was injured. Why keep the Dareth Bond secret from him?" Her violet eyes met his directly. "Because when he learns his only heir is now bonded to a human, there will be consequences that neither of us may be prepared to face." 3 days later, Elias was led into the Eternal Palace's throne room, declared sufficiently healed. The room stretched longer than a football field, its ceiling a network of crystal panels scattering rainbow light onto the assembled courtiers. Emperor Valerian sat on a glowing, fossilized throne. "Approach, human," the Emperor commanded, his voice powerful and deep. Elias inclined his head. "You intervened when my daughter's life was threatened. You will be granted the temporary status of honor guard during your recovery, until protocols for your return to Earth can be arranged." The emphasis on temporary was unmistakable. As Elias straightened, he noticed Counselor Axon, the Emperor's most trusted traditionalist advisor, watching him with calculating, cold precision. "Be wary of him," Ariana murmured. Later, as they left the throne room, Elias felt a strange sensation, a momentary disorientation, like a cool wave washing over his consciousness. Beside him, Ariana staggered. "It begins," she whispered, steadying herself against a pillar. "The second phase." The corridor around Elias dissolved, replaced by images not his own. A child running through crystal gardens, weighed down by royal expectation. An adolescent standing before the ancestral flame, realizing the crushing isolation of her destiny. A woman watching her mother's funeral, the weight of an empire settling onto her young shoulders. He was deluged by her raw emotions. Determination, fierce intelligence, loneliness, and a desperate hope for change. When reality snapped back, Elias found himself on his knees, Ariana facing him, her eyes wide with the same shock he felt. Riel, she began, her voice unsteady. The settlement on Riel. You defied orders to save those refugees. Elias swallowed hard. She had witnessed his most defining moment, his greatest act of conscience and his professional downfall all at once. You chose those lives over your career, your future, she realized. On Varelia, such an act of honor would be rewarded, not condemned. Earth military has a different view of honor, Elias replied. Following orders is paramount even when those orders conflict with the value of life itself. I understand now why the Bond chose you, she concluded. There is a resonance between us. Your reforms. You genuinely believe your people need to change, just as you believe those refugees needed to be saved, regardless of the cost to yourself. What purpose could possibly be served by binding us together? Elias asked, the reality of their situation pressing down. Ariana turned back to him, hope flickering in her eyes. Perhaps to build a bridge between our worlds that cannot be easily broken. The bond has never formed between a Varelian and an outsider. That alone changes everything. What happens now with the memory sharing? It will continue intermittently. We cannot control when or where it occurs, which is why you must remain close to me. The bond seeks proximity during its development phases. So I truly am your bound protector now, following you everywhere. For now, until the bond stabilizes or completes its cycle. 3 more phases. Protection, where proximity is physically compelled. Unification, where our minds can communicate without words. And finally, completion, a permanent linking that allows for shared strength and healing, regardless of distance. And if we don't reach completion? Her expression turned utterly solemn. Then we remain in whatever phase we've achieved with its limitations and requirements, until death. There is no severing the Dareth Bond, Elias. The finality of her statement hung in the air. The only escape is death, and the nature of the bond means the death of one will often extinguish the other. Their fates were now inextricably linked, regardless of their will. Your Earth ambassador seems deeply agitated by these developments, Ariana observed, subtly shifting the conversation. He's repeatedly requested your immediate return to the embassy. I'm not surprised, Elias responded flatly. This is uncharted territory for human diplomacy. Do you wish to rejoin your people? Her tone remained carefully neutral, yet Elias felt a flicker of intense curiosity through their shared connection. His rational mind screamed, yes. He needed to report, undergo human medical evaluation, and find a scientific counter to Ariana's extraordinary claims. Yet a rapidly growing instinctive part of him recoiled from the thought of separation. I must at the very least communicate with them, he decided. They need an understanding of what is occurring. Of course, she conceded. I will arrange a secure channel. But Elias, her use of his first name was a deliberate, quiet emphasis. Be extremely cautious about your disclosures. There are powerful factions in my court who would view this bond as a blasphemous corruption of our most sacred right. If they believe you are permanently bound to a human, they might deem you unfit to rule, he concluded, grasping the devastating political implications. Ariana nodded grimly. Or worse, they might decide that eliminating you is the only way to free me from human contamination. The Dareth Bond has historically been a blessing, a divine connection reserved for Varelians of noble blood. This unprecedented deviation terrifies those who rigidly adhere to the old ways. Like High Counselor Axon, Elias observed. Especially Axon, she confirmed. He has spent decades positioning his nephew as my future consort. Your very existence here jeopardizes everything he has worked for. The political architecture was now terrifyingly clear. Elias realized he wasn't just entangled in an alien tradition. He was an unsuspecting pawn in a high-stakes power struggle for the future of Varelia. So, he summarized dryly, I am either your divinely appointed protector or a corrupting alien plague, depending on which political faction is speaking. Welcome to Varelian court politics. Lieutenant, Ariana replied, a faint smile touching her lips, where destiny and conspiracy are often indistinguishable. The protection phase approaches, in the subsequent days. The memory exchange is intensified, sometimes offering only fleeting glimpses, at other times extended emotionally wrenching sequences. Elias experienced her isolated childhood, her secret fascination with Earth culture, and her unwavering resolve to modernize her society. She in turn witnessed his rigorous combat deployments, the deep loyalty of his unit, and the career-destroying weight of the Riel incident. These involuntary exchanges cultivated an intimacy far beyond any normal connection. Elias began reading Ariana's subtle moods, anticipating her thoughts, and feeling a rising protective instinct that transcended mere duty. "The protection phase is imminent," Ariana explained during a rare private moment in the palace gardens, where strange luminescent flora swayed in the breeze. "You will soon sense threats to my safety much more acutely, and the bond will inflict physical distress if we are separated." "How debilitating are we talking?" Elias asked, watching the strange light play across the exotic plants. "It varies," she admitted. "For some historical pairs, separation caused only anxiety. For others, the pain was incapacitating." Elias absorbed this with alarm. His position was already fragile, a temporary diplomatic courtesy. If the bond's physical mandate became known, their fiction would instantly shatter. "Your father must suspect something," he noted. "I've been glued to your side for a week. He believes I am simply honoring a temporary life debt of gratitude before you return to Earth," she replied. "He must not know the truth of the bond's depth." Their conversation was abruptly cut short by a Varelian female in the sleek, functional armor of the Royal Guard. "Your Highness," she announced, bowing formally. "The Emperor requires your immediate presence in the council chamber. It concerns matters of succession and tradition." Elias felt a surge of cold anxiety through the bond. Those two words were Axon's constant battle cry. "We shall attend at once," Ariana declared, rising gracefully. As they followed the guard, Elias noted her thoughtful, unhostile assessment. "Commander Riva leads my personal detail," Ariana explained quietly. "She has served my family for 3 generations and has more battlefield experience than most of our military." "3 generations?" Elias questioned, studying the commander who appeared to be in her physical prime. "Varelians enjoy considerably longer lifespans," Ariana reminded him. "Riva has lived through 270 cycles of our moons. Axon's trap and the sacred ritual in the council chamber." The 12 high counselors were seated around a massive, luminous table, with Emperor Valerian at the head and Axon at his right. "The council has serious concerns regarding succession and the preservation of our sacred bloodlines," Axon began, his thin lips curving into a semblance of a smile. "While gratitude for the human officer's intervention is appropriate, the extended nature of this arrangement exceeds traditional boundaries. Lieutenant Cade serves as my honored guard while recovering," Ariana countered smoothly. "However," Axon continued, his voice dripping false pleasantness, "the time has come to address your future, Princess. The Council proposes that formal courtship rituals begin immediately with appropriate noble candidates from the ancient houses." The true purpose of the summons was revealed. Axon was forcing an immediate marriage to a conservative noble, likely his own nephew. "My focus remains on modernization initiatives," Ariana responded diplomatically. "Marriage can wait until these crucial matters are secured." "With respect, Princess," Axon shot back. "Tradition demands that bloodline security takes precedence over policy initiatives." He glanced at Elias, making the word outsiders sound like a fatal disease. The Emperor, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. "We must find a path that honors both. Perhaps," Axon suggested smoothly, "the princess might demonstrate her respect for tradition by participating in the celestial purification ritual during the coming alignment of our moons." Elias felt a spike of alarm from Ariana, though her composure held fast. "The purification is an ancient and sacred ceremony. I would require time to prepare." 3 days should be sufficient," Axon agreed magnanimously. "The ritual must be performed at its peak." Once outside, Elias confronted her. "What is this purification ritual and why did it alarm you?" "It's our oldest ceremony," she explained, leading him toward a secluded alcove. "A ritual cleansing to purge external influences and reconnect with our ancestral essence. It demands absolute isolation. No guards, no attendants, only the temple priestesses." "And if we are forcibly separated during the protection phase?" Elias didn't need to finish. "Precisely," she said grimly. "If the bond has progressed, the separation could cause debilitating distress, enough to reveal the truth to everyone." "Then we need a contingency," Elias decided. A way for me to remain close enough to maintain the bond without violating the isolation. The secret passage and the Vosanti elixir. Their planning was interrupted by Commander Riva, who spoke with a sudden genuine concern. Princess, I must advise against this ritual. There are irregularities. What irregularities? Elias pressed. High Counselor Axon has personally selected the priestesses from houses aligned with his faction, Riva revealed, and he has ordered his personal guard to secure the perimeter, replacing the royal sentinels. He's isolating you, Elias concluded grimly. Ariana's resolve hardened. Then we must ensure his plan fails. Commander Riva, I need you to contact Elder Sonai, who served my mother. She maintains the old ways and has no love for Axon's politics. Ask her for the ancient maps of the passages beneath the Hill of Ancestors, specifically any that connect to the purification chamber. Elias turned to Riva. I need to know exactly what this ritual entails, the procedures, the timing, everything. Riva's focus returned to Ariana. Princess, I must inform you that Axon has indeed modified the ceremony. He has added an ancient elixir called Vosanti, which supposedly enhances ancestral memories. Vosanti hasn't been used in 3 centuries, Ariana exclaimed with alarm. It was discontinued because it renders supplicants completely suggestible. Mind control, Elias translated. Essentially, yes, Ariana confirmed. It opens neural pathways, making the mind vulnerable to external suggestion that it interprets as the will of the ancestors. The perfect opportunity for Axon to plant ideas that serve his agenda. Riva interjected a tactical observation. The ancient passages Elder Sonai identified include one that opens into a small chamber behind the ceremonial wall of the purification room. Historically, temple guardians observed rituals from this hidden position, so I could potentially interrupt if things go wrong, Elias suggested. Yes, but timing would be crucial, Riva cautioned. Interrupting too early would expose your presence without justification. She then fixed them both with a stare. If you truly share a Dareth Bond according to the ancient texts, you should be developing certain abilities, enhanced awareness, shared emotional states, even a temporary access to each other's physical capabilities in extreme need. The bond itself may be your greatest asset. Elias and Ariana exchanged looks of stunned realization. The connection that threatened their lives might also be their only weapon. The next 3 days are crucial, Riva instructed. You must strengthen your connection as much as possible through soul anchoring. Shared experience, focused intention, and proximity. The stronger the bond before separation, the more resilient it becomes during forced absence. The weight of the situation settled heavily upon Elias. What began as a diplomatic exile had evolved into a fight for survival, a forced intimate connection to an alien princess, and a direct involvement in an intergalactic political crisis. Yet beneath the complexity and danger, he sensed something he had missed since his fall from grace. A purpose, a cause worth fighting for. The 3 days passed in a blur of intense soul-anchoring sessions, hours spent in close proximity, voluntarily sharing memories, and practicing focused awareness of each other's emotional states. I can sense your constant vigilance, Ariana observed during one session in her private meditation chamber. It never truly stops even when you appear relaxed. Military training becomes instinct, Elias explained, sitting cross-legged facing her. Always scanning for threats, evaluating exits, assessing potential weapons. I sense something deeper, she countered, her violet eyes unnervingly perceptive. A restlessness as though you are seeking something you have not found. The bond is getting stronger, he deflected. Yes, she agreed. I can feel your presence even when we're in separate rooms now. A warmth at the edge of my consciousness. For me, Elias explained, it's like a musical note held continuously in the background. I always know which direction to find you, how far away you are. On the evening before the ritual, Commander Riva confirmed the final piece of the puzzle. Axon had added the Vosanti elixir to the ritual, which was known to render supplicants completely suggestible. Mind control, Elias stated, pacing the room. Not only is he separating us to expose the bond, but he's also planning to brainwash you while you're isolated. We must ensure his plan fails, Ariana resolved. We have the ancient maps. We have the hidden passage. The timing of the interruption will be the key. One more thing, Riva interjected. If the bond is truly progressing, You must utilize the unification phase as soon as it manifests. In the histories, bonded pairs could share sensory information and even temporarily access each other's physical capabilities. Ariana nodded with fierce determination. Then we must strengthen this connection now. We have only hours left. Too late, and Axon's plan may already take root. We need a signal, Ariana decided. Something to tell you when intervention is mandatory. The bond itself could be that signal. If you're in genuine distress, I should sense it, Elias suggested. I'll project a specific thought. The memory of the assassination attempt. It's vivid enough in both our minds to cut through any manipulation. As they finalized their plan, the bond pulsed with a new, almost physical intensity. The protection phase was now fully active, creating a constant, invisible tether of connection. The temple passages are ancient, Riva cautioned. They may contain defenses, physical and spiritual, designed to repel outsiders. Tread carefully and respect every marking. I will, Elias promised, though he privately wondered how his human training could decode millennia-old Varelian security. As if sensing his worry, Ariana took his hand, the contact sending a stabilizing wave of warmth through the bond. Trust in what we've built. The bond will be your guide where knowledge fails. The sacred vow and the ancestral path that night, Elias was plunged into the most profound memory exchange yet. Not a glimpse, but total immersion into Ariana's past. He stood as a younger Ariana, witnessing her mother, Queen Sorella, passionately advocating for engagement with the wider galaxy against the furious opposition of a younger, already isolationist Axon. Remember, Ariana, the dying queen whispered to her daughter in a final memory. Tradition exists to guide us, not to imprison us. The true honor is the courage to adapt their wisdom to challenges they could never foresee. Then the queen's death chamber. Promise me you will continue what I began. Promise me you will protect her, Valerian, she pleaded with the shattered emperor. Elias awoke, his face wet with tears that were not his own. The bond had shared not just the memory, but the raw, visceral grief and the sense of sacred purpose. He now understood. Ariana's reforms were not political ambition. They were a dying mother's vow, and a conviction that her civilization's survival depended on change. Breaching the temple's defenses, the ancestral purification temple, a monolithic structure of ancient stone, stood impervious to change. Elias watched from a hidden vantage as Ariana's procession entered. The separation immediately manifested as a dull, persistent ache in his chest, mirroring the discomfort he sensed in her through the bond. Following the ancient maps provided by Elder Sonai, Elias found the concealed entrance at the base of the hill. He triggered the stone panel using a memorized sequence of carved handholds and plunged into the low, dark passage, his shielded light revealing walls covered in archaic scripture and historical carvings. His caution was immediately rewarded. He encountered a pressure plate trap, then a chamber entirely composed of them. Realizing the safe path must align with the hierarchy of Ariana's direct ancestral line, Elias focused on the symbols revealed by the memory exchange. He successfully crossed the floor, though a single misstep triggered a descending section of the ceiling, forcing him to rush forward just as the path sealed behind him. Driven now by the insistent ache of separation, Elias navigated through two more lethal security measures: a complex hand sequence lock and a narrow, terrifying bridge over a chasm. He moved faster, guided less by the map and more by the faint, urgent beacon of the bond. The trap as sprung. Elias finally reached the hidden observation chamber behind the purification room. Peering through the invisible slit, he saw Ariana kneeling in the center, surrounded by 7 priestesses, all Axon's loyalists. The Emperor and the Council watched from elevated alcoves, with Axon constantly whispering into Valerian's ear. The lead priestess, a severe woman with etched facial markings, approached Ariana, holding an ornate chalice that emitted a faint, greenish vapor, the Vosanti elixir. I will resist as long as possible. Be ready. Ariana's thought pulsed clearly through the bond. She drank. The effect was instantaneous and disorienting. Elias experienced a surge as Ariana's mind expanded and thinned, her consciousness exposed and malleable. The priestesses began a rhythmic, hypnotic chant. Hear the wisdom of your ancestors, princess, the lead priestess murmured, her voice laced with false authority. Your path is false. Your reforms threaten our purity. The human's presence pollutes our court. Elias felt Ariana's mental resistance waver under the elixir's influence, the subversive whispers blending dangerously with genuine ancestral memory. Axon leaned forward, giving a subtle hand signal. The priestess nodded, producing a small crystal vial containing a luminescent blue liquid, a substance completely outside the traditional rite. "To complete your purification," the priestess announced, loud enough for the emperor to hear, "you must cleanse your blood of any foreign elements. This is not the ritual. It's poison." Ariana's raw alarm cut through the bond like a physical knife. Intervention and exposure. Elias didn't hesitate. He pressed the specific pattern on the observation wall, and a hidden door swung inward. In 3 strides, he burst into the sacred chamber. "Stop!" he roared. Gasps and shouts erupted. The emperor rose, his face a mask of shock and fury. "This is sacrilege!" Axon thundered. "Guards, remove him." Elias ignored him, focusing his full energy through the bond. He projected clarity and strength into Ariana's mind, helping her fight the Vasanti's effects. "That vial contains no purification essence," Elias declared to the emperor. "It is poison intended to sever her vital connections." "Preposterous. The human has lost his mind," Axon sputtered. "Test the substance," Elias challenged. "If I am wrong, I accept any punishment." The emperor, prioritizing his daughter's life, raised a halting hand. "Give me the vial." When the priestess instinctively clutched it closer, Valerian commanded, his voice deadly calm, "Surrender the vial." Reluctantly, she complied. The emperor examined the blue liquid. "This bears the mark of the Nephilim orchid," he observed, his expression darkening. "A substance that does not purify but specifically severs bonded connections." His gaze snapped to Axon. "The human has corrupted her. They have formed an abomination, a Dareth Bond between species." Axon screamed, his composure finally shattering. "The cleansing agent was necessary to free her." "Is this true?" the emperor asked Ariana, his voice a barely audible tremor. Ariana straightened, summoning every ounce of her royal dignity. "Yes, father. When Lieutenant Cade intercepted the assassination, his blood mingled with mine upon the ancestral symbols. The Dareth Bond activated of its own accord." "Impossible," a counselor protested. "And yet it has happened," Ariana asserted. "This proves the differences between our species are not as fundamental as tradition led us to believe." "You acted without imperial authority." "Counselor," the emperor observed coldly. "I acted to protect our traditions," Axon yelled, losing all control. "Something you have failed to do since Sorella poisoned your mind with her progressive nonsense." The mention of the queen in such disrespectful terms shattered the emperor's last restraint. "Treason!" Valerian pronounced, his voice vibrating with absolute fury. "Detain Counselor Axon and these priestesses. They will be questioned thoroughly." The unification of the bond Axon, seeing his plan implode, gave a desperate hand signal to his remaining loyalist guards. One rushed Ariana with a hidden weapon. Elias instantly moved to shield her, but this time the Dareth Bond pulsed with unprecedented power. Elias felt Ariana's consciousness partially merge with his own. Suddenly, he accessed fighting techniques he had never learned, ancient Varelian martial arts passed down through generations. His body moved with a fluid grace, combining his military training with these newly accessible skills. He disarmed the attacker with a precise strike to Varelian nerve points, knowledge that came directly through the bond. Simultaneously, Ariana accessed Elias's combat awareness, anticipating threats from multiple directions. Together, linked and moving as a perfectly coordinated unit, they neutralized the immediate danger. Axon, in a final desperate move, lunged at the Emperor with a concealed blade. Elias sensed the attack through the bond, Ariana's heightened court awareness recognizing the shift in Axon's posture. "Father, behind you!" Ariana screamed. The Emperor turned just in time, receiving only a glancing wound as loyal guards subdued Axon. "Treason," Valerian pronounced over his former advisor. "You will have ample time to contemplate historical vindication in the isolation cells." The Emperor then turned to Elias and Ariana, studying the visible luminescence pulsing beneath their skin. "We have much to discuss," he said finally, "about this bond, its implications, and the future of Varelia. But not here. This sacred space has been defiled enough." As they departed the temple, the political earthquake they had caused settled over them. What happens now? Elias thought, the direct mental communication now effortless. We face the council together, Ariana replied, her thoughts strong and clear. And we prove that the Dareth Bond's choice was not a mistake, but perhaps the beginning of a new understanding between our peoples. The Great Hall of Ancestral Judgment had stood silent for over a century. Its vast circular chamber, lined with statues of past emperors, exuded a solemn historical gravity. The floor, inlaid with luminescent minerals, mapped the interconnected bloodlines of every Varelian noble house, a potent visual reminder that the judgment to be rendered would affect millennia of lineage. Elias stood beside Ariana at the imperial house's symbol. Surrounding them in tense concentric rings were the council, military commanders, including a stoic Riva, heads of the noble houses, and the Earth Diplomatic Corps led by Ambassador Thorn. Elevated above the proceedings, Emperor Valerian, despite the wound from Axon's betrayal, projected absolute authority. We gather to address matters unprecedented in our history, the Emperor began, his voice echoing flawlessly through the chamber. The attempted assassination of Princess Ariana, the treason of Counselor Axon, and most significantly, the formation of a Dareth Bond between the heir to the Eternal Throne and a human officer. Murmurs rippled, but silence returned instantly. Before judgment is rendered, Valerian continued, we shall hear testimony beginning with the bond-bearers themselves. Ariana stepped forward, the epitome of royal confidence. Honored father, esteemed council, noble houses, she began, her voice clear. The Dareth Bond that connects Lieutenant Elias Cade and myself was activated by an act of selfless protection, a deed our most sacred traditions have always honored. She paused, letting the silence magnify her next words. For generations, we assumed the bond could only form between Varelians. This assumption is now demonstrably false. What other assumptions about our isolation, about our separation from other species, might also be incorrect? Ariana pressed on, detailing the bond's rapid progression. Initiation, memory sharing, protection, and the beginning of unification experienced during the confrontation. She turned slightly toward Elias, their connection visibly pulsing beneath their skin. This is not an abomination, as Axon claimed, but perhaps the most profound evidence that the path my mother advocated, the path of careful engagement with other worlds, is indeed our destiny. Elias followed her, speaking plainly, his military candor resonating with the commanders present. I did not seek this bond, nor did I understand its gravity, he stated. But having experienced its effects, I cannot view it as anything but meaningful. He directly addressed their core fear. I understand your apprehension about contamination, but the Dareth Bond proves this fear unfounded. It has connected us without erasing either of our distinct natures. Testimony followed. Temple scholars confirmed the bond's authenticity. Medical specialists showed the unprecedented quantum resonance between Varelian and human cells. Most compelling was Elder Sunai's testimony, citing ancient texts that the bond's original architects intended it to recognize worthy souls regardless of physical form, a crucial nuance lost to centuries of isolationist interpretation. The Emperor's decree. Darth Sentinel of the Crown finally, Emperor Valerian rose to deliver his judgment. The silence was absolute. The evidence confirms beyond doubt that a true Dareth Bond exists between my daughter and Lieutenant Cade, he declared. Our ancestral laws are clear. Those joined by the Dareth Bond are considered unified in purpose by the will of our ancestors. No earthly authority, not even the Emperor, may sever or deny such a connection. He paused, the tension in the room reaching its peak. Princess Ariana remains heir to the Eternal Throne, he continued, eliciting visible relief from her supporters. The Bond's selection of Lieutenant Cade as her protector must be honored according to our most sacred traditions. Therefore, I hereby establish a new position within our imperial structure, Darth Sentinel of the Crown. Elias's breath hitched. Lieutenant Elias Cade will hold this position, Valerian finished, with all rights and responsibilities traditionally accorded to bonded protectors, while simultaneously serving as a bridge between our world and Earth. Murmurs erupted again, but the Emperor's hand silenced them. The Dareth Bond has always been viewed as a sign of guidance during times of significant change. We would be fools to ignore such guidance now. His expression softened slightly as he looked at Ariana. Sorella would be proud of your courage. Elias knelt before the Emperor to receive the ceremonial band of office. a metallic armband inscribed with symbols representing both his Earth origins and his new Varelian connection. Loyalty in the final phase. As the assembly dispersed, Ambassador Thorne approached, a blend of amazement and diplomatic calculation on his face. "Well, Lieutenant, I certainly didn't anticipate you becoming a permanent fixture in an alien royal court." "Neither did I, sir," Elias admitted. "Earth Command will have many questions about this connection," Thorne said pointedly. "Where exactly do your ultimate loyalties now lie?" Ariana smoothly joined them. "His loyalty is to truth and protection, Ambassador Thorne, as it has always been. The bond did not change his essence. It simply recognized qualities that already existed." "A diplomatic answer, Your Highness," Thorne conceded. "I'll expect regular reports, Lieutenant. You are still technically attached to the Earth Diplomatic Corps." "Yes, sir," Elias agreed, though both men understood the chain of command had been utterly redefined. In the following days, the bond continued to deepen. Moderate Varelian factions, emboldened by the Emperor's decree, began advocating for exchanges with Earth. Elias stood at Ariana's side during the first official joint cultural exchange, their bond a visible symbol of the unprecedented connection forming between their worlds. Later that evening, alone in the palace gardens, Elias voiced the question that constantly lingered. What happens when the bond reaches completion? The final phase. Ariana turned to him, the moonlight catching her silver-blue skin. "The technical answer is that it represents the full realization of the bond's purpose, a permanent synthesis of strengths while maintaining individual identities." "And the complete answer?" She smiled at his directness. "In our history, many bonded pairs who reached completion also formed personal unions. The intensity of the connection often led naturally to romantic attachment, though it is never a requirement of the bond itself. The possibility hung between them, heavy and undeniable." "And is that something you would consider?" Elias asked carefully. Through the bond, he felt her genuine, unguarded consideration. "I believe the bond forms between those who are already aligned in essential ways," she said softly. "It doesn't create compatibility. It reveals it." She reached out, taking his hand, and a rush of warmth cascaded through their connection. "So yes, Elias, it is something I would consider. Not because the bond demands it, but because what we've discovered through this connection is something rare and valuable. Something worth exploring further when the time is right." The admission shifted their reality, acknowledging a possibility that extended beyond duty, into territory that was profoundly personal. For Elias, who had once lost everything for following his conscience, there was a sense of having found not just purpose but home, not on Earth or Varelia, but within the connection that now defined his existence. "Something on your mind?" Ariana asked, sensing his deep contemplation. "Just thinking that sometimes," he replied, smiling. "The longest journeys lead exactly where we needed to go, even when the destination wasn't on any map we recognized." She nodded, her violet eyes reflecting the moonlight. "That's the true wisdom of the Dareth Bond. It illuminates the paths that were always possible, but required courage to walk."